All right. Hey, good afternoon, folks. Once again, we are back taking a look at the tropics. Today is Wednesday, September 11th, 2024. This is your afternoon tropical update. We are watching the imminent landfall of Hurricane Francine in the central Gulf Coast, set to landfall in Louisiana near Morgan City in the next couple of hours. We'll start the update with this storm, but we're also going to talk a little bit about the rest of the tropics this evening as we turn our attention away from Francine the next couple of days. We do have a new area of interest developing off the coast of the Carolinas. We have two invests down here and the MDR, and then we also have a new tropical depression that's formed off the coast of Africa. So today is the peak of the hurricane season statistically, and at peak season we are looking like peak season despite a pretty quiet period beforehand. Hurricane Center's map here this afternoon. Again, everything we just basically talked about. We'll cover most of this after we get to Francine. So let's go ahead and look at the latest from the National Hurricane Center, 1 p.m. Central Daylight Time. Maximum sustained winds 90 miles an hour with Hurricane Francine. Has not really intensified much after this morning. The storm did have a nice period between last night and this morning of some fairly rapid intensification. The pressure fell quite a bit. The winds came up about 20 to 25 miles an hour. But this morning we saw that wind shear and dry air we were forecasting to come in show up, and it has significantly halted that intensification phase. And Francine is now basically going to hold or maybe just ever so slightly weaken before landfall. But given we only have a few hours before it moves on shore, there isn't much left to talk about in terms of that. It's going to come in as a strong Category 1 hurricane with that movement to the northeast now at 16 miles per hour. It's going to move in pretty quick tonight. Visible satellite presentation of Francine this afternoon. Almost can see the eye trying to pop out from beneath the cirrus shield, but there's a little too much wind shear to see a clear eye. But it's got a nice, healthy core to it. Some of the convection's being pulled away from it in places here. But overall, it looks like a fairly healthy hurricane that's under the influence of dry air. We can see a new dry air finger beginning to move up into the storm. So this will kind of push some of these heavier rain bands out as it moves along, but that inner core is still fairly strong. Hurricane hunters today, seeing the storm up until landfall, we have seen the pressure rise from 972 earlier this morning to about 979 this afternoon, and it's going to come in probably in the low 980s when it finally makes landfall. Looking at the satellite and radar overlay, we can see here Morgan City, Louisiana, just south of Lafayette, right about there, New Orleans over here, and then we have Mississippi and Alabama off to our east. So the core of the strongest winds just now starting to move into that coastal Louisiana area just to the east of Vermilion Bay. We also have a fairly nasty backside eye wall. Look at this convergent eye wall on the backside here as the trough begins to interact with it. This is a stinging, nasty band of wind. A Gulf rig had this go over it earlier and reported winds over 100 miles an hour. So I don't think, on the land, you won't get them quite that strong. But I would caution that as the storm comes in, that right front eye wall is not going to be a joke. But folks just to the west of the bay won't see a lot of storm surge, but they can see some really nasty winds as this comes in. The core of Francine also looks like it was producing a tornado briefly inside the eye, or a very large water spout. So there's a violent little burst here and there. I think the storm overall has got some issues, but I mean, there's some of these bands are pretty nasty as they come in, and I think the theme of Francine will be at times it's going to be really nasty, and then there's going to be periods where it's not going to be so bad. But especially if you're in southeast Louisiana to the southwest of New Orleans, anywhere in this area, I mean, hunker down, you're going to get a hurricane in the next couple of hours. Heavy tropical storm conditions are already spreading northward. It looks like here on the Gulf Coast of Mississippi, we're going to get in on that soon. It's been fairly quiet today, fairly steady rain throughout the late morning and early afternoon, but winds have not really responded too much yet. But we see some of those heavier bands with supercell thunderstorms in them that will come in and give us some more of that heavy rain and strong winds and potential for tornadoes. All this moves in, again, landfall here in the next couple of hours, and then this will quickly move into the northeast and continue that more north to more northeast jaunt as it gets up further into Louisiana, and we'll ride up the east side of the Mississippi River and going into Mississippi and Alabama over the next couple of days. Impact still to come, 5 to 10 foot of water rise to the west of it, or to the east rather, of Intercoastal City to about Port Fourchon, and then a little bit less, but still fairly high water totals all the way over to the Mississippi-Alabama border, where water may rise up to 5 feet above normal tide. We do have rainfall still to come here, about 4 to 6 inches across the area. The rainfall totals have come down a little bit, except for right near that landfall point, because again, at times the rain will be heavy, but then it won't be that heavy for a lot of the time. So Francine, not a prolific rainmaker, but definitely anywhere in this region, especially maybe even over towards the coast of Alabama and even Florida, you could see periods of heavy rain and lead to flash flooding, but widespread, like regional flooding, is not likely given the setup. Tornado watch has been issued by the Storm Prediction Center. This covers from about Lafayette up to about Baton Rouge, back over to the Mississippi-Alabama border. So all the area, including the Mississippi Gulf Coast and a lot of southeast Louisiana, under the threat for tornadoes. The likelihood is high. Not surprising in a tropical setup. This will likely produce a couple of tornadoes. We had 2 or 3 warned cells already, and the radar shows there could be plenty more of those hiding offshore. So please stay safe, everybody. Hunker down at this point. If you don't have to be somewhere, you're not an emergency personnel, then just stay where you are. It doesn't look that bad right now, but it's going to pick up throughout the evening, and the worst will be late tonight through early tomorrow morning for the Gulf Coast, and then it'll weaken as it spreads up and brings rainfall to parts of Mississippi and Alabama, Jackson and Tuscaloosa, and points northward from there. So that's the latest on Francine. Again, not much more to forecast in that regard. We do have 2 other areas of interest when we go back out, and off the coast of the Carolinas, Hurricane Center gives us about a 30% shot. This is a basically non-tropical, whoops, that's not it. Where are we at here? There we go. All right, this is a non-tropical area of low pressure. We can see the little vortex spinning right here. Again, Francine moving into Louisiana. And then over here, we have this little area of interest. And I think one of the things that's going to happen is over the next couple of days, as Francine moves northward, a lot of that tropical moisture spills across Florida and into this region of the southwest Atlantic, where it looks like it'll get a little bit of juice to this little low-level vortex. And this system over the warm Gulf Stream waters and getting a little bit of help from an old tropical system, bringing it some moisture, this could acquire some more general rotation, some more tropical characteristics or subtropical characteristics. We can see here on Friday, the GFS has this painted where the remnants of Francine are over the western Tennessee Valley, and we've kind of juiced up the southwest Atlantic with all that tropical moisture that came across the Gulf. Well, all that dry air pushes that tropical moisture over the Gulf out, moves it over here, and then when we go the next couple of days, the GFS does show that system beginning to spin up. We can go to Saturday morning. It shows a weak low pressure trying to form off the coast of the Carolinas. And although dry air gets entrained, it still probably has some subtropical characteristics, and it looks like some type of low pressure will form near the coast of the Carolinas here on Sunday into Monday, and then it looks like this would move ashore Monday into Tuesday. So I don't anticipate a very strong storm, but this could be a fairly healthy rainfall event, and could be something to watch carefully here. Hurricane hunters may go fly this weekend. We may get some more model data. We'll probably have things changing fast here, but folks in the Carolinas, especially South Carolina, North Carolina, need to be, kind of heads up on this one. And you could have impacts or tropical storm watches or warnings going up this weekend for impacts next week. So more to come on that one as we get some more details, but we got to let that kind of cook a little bit longer. Going out to the far eastern Atlantic, we do have this next tropical depression, Tropical Depression 7, named this morning from the National Hurricane Center. This is a few hundred miles west of the Cabo Verde Islands. This is moving off to the west. And overall, Tropical Depression 7 forecast to move along for the next couple of days. I don't actually have the cone. Need to pull that up real quick, so we'll drag that over here. This is the first cone from the National Hurricane Center. 35-mile-an-hour winds, movement west-northwest, 18 miles per hour. And you can see expect to stay over the open Atlantic for the next week. And then from there, still remain a tropical storm. Now, the model guidance for intensity is quite spread. There is a large region of models that don't even develop this at all, and some models that bring this into Category 2 hurricane intensity by the end of the week, whereas towards the middle of next week, while the Hurricane Center is kind of lying in the middle for right now. Track guidance, again, that steady west-northwest motion. Towards the end of the forecast, we think this might be turning northward. Hurricane Center notes that's possible. Overall, models do depict a fairly hostile environment for TD7 as it moves along. European model hinting that the potential for dry air is in the area there. So I think that this is going to develop fairly slowly. It doesn't like the worst conditions, but it doesn't look pristine conditions either. The Atlantic just very hostile this year, even when we thought we were going to have such a record season. And then you can see the European model moves this along, keeps the pressure pretty weak, and then this big trough digs down as we go into next week. And that'll either pick the storm up or it'll kind of push it further west, but then eventually it looks like another trough would come get it, and there's a lot of chaos right here. So the chances of the storm to recurve north at some point seem high, and this seems like a low threat overall to the eastern U.S. And a lot of time we'll track it, see if something changes, but for now it appears TD7 does not appear to be a significant threat to the eastern U.S. So that's what I got for you guys today on your tropical update. Again, Hurricane Francine moving in tonight, all the stuff that comes with the hurricane moving in with it. It's going to be a nasty night. Please stay sheltered and watch out for tornado warnings, and if you're in the Gulf Coast, again, TD7 not expected to be a threat in this area of interest of the Carolinas. We're going to have to watch this weekend. We will have continuing coverage on this throughout the landfall, and we'll have daily updates on the Facebook page as well, so follow along for more on that. And that's what I got for you guys today. As always, stay safe. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.